Hello, Susan. How you doing?
Good. So you can see me.
Yes, I see you perfectly. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Chris McKinney here, Region 1 Gear Up, and we are having a wonderful presenter, Ms. Susan Doty, who's going to talk a little bit about her background and discuss some financial tips to help you navigate a successful path of being as debt-free as possible in college. So, Susan, take it away.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm glad to be part of this. Just as a brief introduction, I'm on the faculty in economics at the University of Texas at Tyler. I run a center for economic education and financial literacy there. I serve on the board of directors for both the National Council for Economic Education and the State Council for Economic Education. So I have this bird's eye view of what college students are facing and what high school teachers need to do to help prepare their high school students for college. And so what I wanted to do today is just bring a lot of ideas and a lot of ways of thinking to new or upcoming college students. So you say, well, if we're going to talk about personal finance, why is she starting with this economics slide? Okay, and it's because all through our work, we believe that economics is a way of thinking. And if we instill that way of thinking, it's going to lead to good decision making in the personal finance arena. So I want to start with this definition of, not even a definition, but this way of thinking about economics. Everything that we value is scarce. What that means is that there's not enough of those things that we value for us to have everything. So because everything is scarce, we can't have it all. Because we can't have it all, we have to make choices. Every choice we make means giving up something else. And the most valued alternative that we give up when we make a choice is something in economics we call opportunity cost. So let's apply that now to this guide to economic reasoning. So people choose. Why is it they have to choose? Because they can't have everything. The choices that people make have costs. What does that mean? It means that whatever we choose means there's something else that was also important to us that we're giving up. We think about people responding to incentives in predictable ways. So now I'm going to start or stop at this point 3 and connect the dots for you. If you're a college student, you have chosen to invest in your education. And when you've done that, you've given something else up. Maybe you're not working full time. Maybe you're not making the kind of money that some of your friends who went straight to work out of high school are making right now. And so why have you done that? You had to believe that investing in your education was going to have a return to you, a benefit that is greater than the cost. So that gets to point 3. People respond predictably to incentives. The incentive for you is a better life after college. That's why you're investing in this time right now. So when we look at number 4, people create economic systems that influence individual choices and incentives. If you had a K-12 education in Texas, then you know all about the free enterprise system. You've been hearing about it since you were in kindergarten. Other words for that are capitalism, free enterprise, market-based economies. Economies that allow you to do what you choose to do, that give you choice and freedom of choice. And so I don't think anyone twisted your arm about going to college. I don't think anyone said this is where you have to go or what you have to major in or what you're going to choose as a career when you get out of college. Those are your choices. And we have the kind of economic system that allows you to make those choices. That's important. People gain when they trade voluntarily. So think about what that means to you for a minute. That affects your spending. It affects what you will do as a career. If you want to make good money. You want to be offering a product or service that's valuable to other people, because people only trade when they're going to gain from that trade, when the benefits exceed the cost of whatever it is that they will purchase. Think for a minute about the last time you bought something at the store. If you don't think about this too hard, if you just close your eyes for a minute and imagine it, when you paid the clerk probably said thank you. And then the clerk gave you the bag with whatever goods in it that you bought. What did you say? Quick. I bet you said thank you instead of you're welcome. Okay, we call that in economics, we call that the double thank you. Thank you, thank you. It's because you both gained from the transaction. You know, when you rent an apartment or you pay your tuition bill, who's benefiting? Is it the college or is it you? It's both of you. In the apartment, is it the landlord or is it you? It's both of you. People gain when they trade voluntarily. It's an important way of thinking as we go forward. And then people's choices have consequences that lie in the future. Isn't that what your education is all about? You are planning, you're investing now for a better life in the future. Okay, let's keep these things in mind as we go forward. All right, we're going to pretend we're playing a little game here. And you can, if you want to scribble on some paper while I'm talking, or if you just want to look at what I have on the slide, either way will work. But I'd like you to draw a large rectangle, okay? And then we're going to fold that rectangle in half. And we're going to divide it on one side equally into 5 squares. And then on the other side, we're going to also develop the 5 squares, but then we're going to further divide them into 2 triangles for each square. So you have something that looks like this. So imagine now that I'm going to fold this large rectangle, and I'm going to fold it along that dotted line so that there are squares on one side of my now long, thin rectangle and triangles on the other side of my long, thin triangle, or long, thin rectangle. Okay? And if I were to glue that, okay, then I wouldn't be able to open it back up again, okay? And so I'd have squares on one side and triangles on the other side. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to pretend for a minute that we're an economy that has limited resources and we can only produce 2 things. We can only produce squares or triangles. So if you now started to cut out either squares or triangles, only cutting on a line and deciding that once a triangle's a triangle, you can't put it together again and make it a square. You have to make some choices. You're going to have a limited number of choices. So in this case, I've chosen 3 squares and 2 triangles. That's a set of choices that was possible from the materials I had. You might have chosen 5 squares, or you might have chosen 4 squares and 2 triangles, or 3 squares and 4 triangles, 2 squares and 6 triangles, 1 square and 8 triangles, or maybe you chose 10 triangles. Okay, but we could identify all the different choices that you made, and we could put them into a chart or a table, and it would look something like this. Okay, so if we chose all 10 triangles, we wouldn't have enough resources for any squares, so we'd have 0 squares. If we wanted 1 square, we'd have to give up 2 triangles, so we'd have 1 square and 8 triangles. If we wanted a second square, we'd have to give up 2 more triangles. Okay, so we would have 2 squares and 6 triangles. If we wanted yet another square, you can read down the chart, you can see what I'm saying. But the point is there's a limited number of choices we had, or a limited number of choices we can make, because there were a limited number of resources that we had to start with. Okay, so you see that? Okay, if we were to graph that, and by the way, if your eyes are starting to roll because I'm talking about graphing and economics here, this is good practice for the things that you're going to see in college and the kinds of thinking that we as professors are going to want to see from you in college. So what we've done is we've just taken a situation, we've We've manipulated it, we've put our data into a table, and now we're going to graph it. Okay, and so if you look at this graph where we have squares on the vertical axis and triangles on the horizontal axis, point A is showing us that we have 10 triangles and 0 squares. If we want a square, we've got to give up 2 triangles, another square, 2 more triangles, another. Okay, so any point along what we call a production possibilities curve, which just means what we're able to produce with the limited resources we have, it's efficient. You know, we're making choices, and to move from one place to another, we have to give up the other product, but it's all efficient, it's all reasonable. What about this point out here? Okay, this point out here that might be, I don't know, 4 squares and 6 triangles. Is that possible? It's not. It's not possible because we didn't have enough resources to get to that point. Well, what about this point where maybe there's 1 square and 2 triangles? Are we using all of the resources that we have? No. No, we're being wasteful in some way. We're not using the resources that are available to us, so this point is very inefficient. Okay, this slide just shows what I was just talking about. It explains what I was talking about. But now, let's apply this way of thinking to your budget. Okay? It doesn't matter how many people in your home are working. You've got one household income, either as a family or you individually. There's one income. What can you do with it? You can spend it or you can save it. If you spend it all down here at point A, how much can you save? None. So if you want to save, that's not free. You've got to give something up. So if you move from here to a little bit of saving or a little bit more saving, then you have to give up spending. And what do you really want to do? You really want to spend it. So it's a sacrifice. You're giving it up. There's an opportunity cost to saving, and it's the spending that you can't do. Okay, so all along here are your efficient choices with the income you have where you're doing some amount of saving and spending. What if you want to do more spending and more saving? Uh-oh, you're out here. And that point, remember, it's the same point. It's unattainable. You don't have enough income to do that amount of spending and saving. So, what if you borrow because there's things you want that you really can't afford? And let's be honest, that's what borrowing's all about. If you're borrowing money, it's because you don't have enough money to get the things you want or do the things you want without borrowing. So if you borrow, what happens next month when you get paid? Before you have that income to make choices about spending or saving, you got to pay off what you borrowed. And so that kind of puts you inside the curve, being a little bit inefficient. So, okay, with all that as sort of a way of thinking, let's get into a discussion of what you might take as a college course in financial literacy, what you might learn as in a program outside of your college courses with something that's offered by the university. Okay, almost any good financial literacy program is going to start with this idea of an economic way of thinking, because it frames the choices you make about money at the get-go. Okay, and so I'm going to make the assumption that you've gone beyond this economic way of thinking and you have chosen to invest in yourself in terms of college. Okay, and one of the reasons, certainly not the only reason, but one of the reasons you've chose to invest in yourself in college is so that you can earn income. And earning income means you need to be thinking now about what you're going to do after college. It doesn't mean you have to decide on day one. You may change your mind lots of times, but keep the idea of I'm on a path. I'm on a path to graduation. I'm on a path to developing a career in mind, even as you start your college program. And part of what that career is going to bring to you is income. And having that income is what gives you the opportunity to make choices about spending and credit. We're going to talk a lot about credit in a few minutes. Okay, but so spending and credit. And then beyond spending and credit, saving and investing, and putting all of these things together into a budget and a financial plan that you can manage just like you can manage your college courses and your academic career. All right. So when you signed up for today's webinar, we talked a little bit about resources. There are a lot of resources available to you as a college student. And let's talk about what they are some. At a university, at any university, there's going to be a financial aid office, and that financial aid office can help you with scholarships, can help you with grants, can help you with student loans, can help you understand an entire financial package. So financial aid office is a really good place for you to visit in person and talk to counselors in person. There's a student life and leadership office, and it may have different names on different campuses, but it will be the group on a campus that is interested in the whole student, all of you. You know, your finances, your academics, your residence life, your commuter issues, everything that relates to your college life will be found in this office, and it'll have a name, something like this one, Student Life. And at UT Tyler, we have a money management group at in Student Life and Leadership, and that group holds some really great on-campus workshops for college students. Things like buying clothes on a budget, things like date night on a budget, oh, and by the way, one of the speakers that we recently had at date night on a budget said, if you're dating someone for 3 times in a row, on the 4th date, you should sit down together and exchange credit scores. So just keep that in mind. We'll come back to that idea in a minute. But student life and leadership, really they have counselors who will talk to you about money issues, and people who will help you with budgeting. So it's a good campus resource. A career placement office. Career placement is a group on campus that will help you find internships, help you find off-campus and sometimes on-campus jobs. So professionals who will make connections for you in your field of interest. So that's they'll help you with resume development and online. Increasingly, firms have you submit your resumes online, sometimes with a video. So, I mean, there are people who can help with all of that on a college campus. And so look for them in your career placement office. Okay, your faculty members. You are the reason that faculty are at a college campus, and we care about you, and we care about your futures, and we want to talk to you. Faculty will have office hours. That may be something you're not accustomed to at the high school level. Office hours are places where we just wait for you to come in and chat. You don't have to have a problem. You don't have to have a concern about the content in the class where you ask for extra help. You can just come in and chat. That's what office hours are for. Most faculty, in addition to having office hours, will have scheduled appointments. Okay, so go make it a point to meet your faculty and see how they can help you. Something I just want to add to that for a minute is think about who's going to be writing your reference letters. Okay, if you are just a student in class, maybe even a student who gets wonderful grades in class, and then it's time to apply for a job and you have to ask a faculty member for a reference, what are they going to say about you? Oh, well, the student had good attendance and got good grades in my class. Wouldn't you like there to be more? So get to know your faculty members so that, you will feel comfortable asking them for references and they will be comfortable and knowledgeable in providing them. Okay, your classmates. The students who you are meeting in class are likely to be your future colleagues when you start working. Network. Start thinking about networking now. Maintain good relationships with as many people as you can. Your former teachers. And if there are any teachers watching this, I'm sure you'll appreciate it. But your former teachers, go back and say thank you. The teachers who wrote you letters of recommendation to get into college, the teachers who encouraged you to do your best when you were in high school. Stay in touch. Let them know what you're doing. Parents, family, friends, these are all contacts who might be able to help you when it comes time to developing your career. Okay, so there's a great website, and it's Econ EdLink, and I'll show you this website now, and then cannot open that file. Okay, let me try something else here. Okay, this is a great website, and I would encourage you to visit it. Okay, under topics, there's some really cool ones. Cybersecurity, okay, that's one that you may want to be interested in. Game-based learning, I'm sure for many of you that you might find that kind of interesting. But take a look as I scroll down to this one called Better Money Habits, okay? And Better Money Habits, okay, has lessons about getting out of debt, renting a place to live, the costs of moving, budgeting basics,
If I
building a
could
good credit
pause you for
score.
just a second,
Sure.
Susan. Yeah, you're still sharing the PowerPoint, so you might need to go share the resource page. It's probably behind
Hmm.
on your desktop.
Hmm. Okay, well, I'm looking at some really cool stuff, and I'm sorry that you can't
That's
see
okay.
it.
That's what I wasn't sure because I knew you needed to get out of the
Okay.
PowerPoint so you could click the link, but then it didn't.
Okay. It says now my screen sharing is paused.
Okay. So you'll want to stop sharing the PowerPoint, but to start sharing the resource site.
Hmm. So maybe a new share?
Yes, like you'd stop sharing and then just share again the screen, but then the screen you choose will be the resource link, like
How's
a different
this?
tab. There it
How's
is.
that?
Econed.link.
Okay.
Yes.
All
Thank
right,
you.
cool. And so those of you watching, I apologize. That was
No
I didn't
worries.
quite know how to do that. All right, so again, on econedlink.org, okay, and if you look at topics, there's all of these interesting topics: game-based learning, cybersecurity. You can scroll down, you can see some interesting ones. But the one I wanted to show you was better money habits. Okay, and so now in the background, you can see some lessons, things like getting out of debt, renting a place to live, budgeting basics, credit reports, and building a credit score. Okay, creating a financial safety net, meeting your financial goals, owning a car. So I would encourage you. We're not going to take the time to go through any of those lessons, but they're great activities for you, and I think that that would be uh, good for you to see on your own. I'm going to let's see. I'm going to go ahead and pull the slide back up. So I would now stop sharing this. Yes.
Exactly. There you go. Now you
Okay.
can see. Okay.
Okay. And back
Okay,
to
share
here.
screen
We're
again
good.
on the
Are you
bottom.
seeing?
Not yet, but sometimes it
So
takes a few seconds. So you go to the share screen again, and then you'll choose the PowerPoint, and then go to presentation mode.
oh dear. Okay. Share screen. Well, let me show you this. How's that? I'll do something else right now. So can you see this go sign?
Yes, find out how powerful compound interest can. Yes, there we go.
Okay. Well, here's one on that Econ EdLink site. There are a bunch of interactives, all kinds of very cool calculators. Calculators for figuring out how long it will take to get out of debt if you're in debt, credit card calculators, things like that. But the one I'm going to show you now is a compound interest calculator, and this will get back to the sort of discussion we were having earlier about your one income and why you might choose to save it rather than spend it all. Okay, so a compound interest calculator is going to show us the effect of saving money and saving money in a way where it is earning interest, and that interest is compounded interest on top of interest on top of interest. Assume you put $100 principal deposit in the first year and it's 10% interest. In the second year you have $110, and in the next year you would have interest on the $100 of principal, interest on the $10 in interest, and so you'd have another $11, and so you'd have 121. The point is it compounds, it builds over time. So watch this for a minute. We're looking at three variables. We're looking at the principal, and that's what we're going to save every month. And remember what that is. It's our income that we are choosing not to spend. Okay, let's say we start at age 30 and with an interest rate of 8%. And before you gasp at 8%, no, we're not going to get that in a bank. We're not going to get that with certificates of deposit. We're creating a culture, a mindset of investing. This is going to be money that we invest in the market, in stocks, bonds, mutual funds. Okay, so watch and see what happens. We're measuring savings on the vertical axis and time on the horizontal axis. If you're a visual learner, you can see clearly in green the principle that we are depositing every month. This is our sacrifice. This is what we are choosing not to spend. But notice what's happening with the gray. It's interest on top of interest on top of interest. And so you say, wow, at retirement, that's more than $250,000. That's a lot. Is it enough? No, it's not. So let's look at some other numbers. Let's look at $250 a month, beginning at age 22. And let's leave that same 8% interest there, because if we look at the history of the stock market over any 30-year period, any long-term period, we see the stock market returning approximately 11% compounded interest. So this falls, I think, on the conservative side of that. So I've changed the numbers here. Higher principal, lower age, okay, same interest rate. This time, look at the proportion of what's building in the right-hand column that is principal. It's a significantly smaller proportion. And you can see that most of the growth is in the compound interest. Well, now, did I catch your interest? No pun intended. Yes, because now there's over $1 million in retirement. And so that probably caught your eye. But it's not cheap to get there. Look at what this person is doing. Sacrificing $250 of spending every single month. But I was very deliberate in choosing the age, 22. What are we trying to create in your thinking? A college-bound culture, graduating on time. And so so when you graduate and you get your first professional job, okay, you're going to be making more money than you have made in the past. And before you make decisions about spending that money, think about this. Okay, it's called paying yourself first. And if you will start saving and investing that first professional income as soon as you have it, $250, what does it mean? Maybe it means you don't buy a new car. You drive the clunker for a little bit longer. Maybe it means that you get a one-bedroom apartment instead of a two-bedroom apartment. Okay. You think about what else you might give up in order to do this savings, but that's the time. That's the time, hopefully, you can start a little bit before then, but certainly that's the time in your professional life to begin saving. It never gets easier. There's never a time later where it's easier. If you think about, building a life and a family, where you're responsible for other people, you think it's going to get easier at that point, it won't be. So, so think about this and keep this vision of compound interest in your mind. It's a very powerful one. Okay, so I'm going to try to go back to the PowerPoint slide now. So I would stop share. Okay. And then from stop share, I would
Start share again, the PowerPoint.
Yeah, but it comes up and it covers it. So share screen.
Yeah, you click share screen, and then you should get your desktop, and you choose the PowerPoint again.
I am not finding the PowerPoint. Oh, okay.
PowerPoint just showed up. It might
All
have
right.
been just been a little bit of a lag there. Okay.
All right. All right. Well, I apologize for keeping
No,
folks waiting here.
I paused this real quick, so we're good.
Okay. All right. So we talked about this. I'm going to go back to. Are you seeing the slide?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. So
The
I'm
will and
going
skill.
to, yeah, I'm going to go back to the slide we were on before I took you off to visit some websites. And I think, skill is not going to be the issue. Okay. You have lots of resources available to you. You have lots of people who can help you develop the skills. So I think the real issue is, do you have the will to be successful through your college career so that you can develop your life after college career and be disciplined about your finances so you can put yourself in a good financial situation and save and invest so that you have a successful financial future. I think that that's up to you. Let's look at some other things right now. Okay, there are a lot of banks and financial institutions that also have resources that can help you. Most any community bank has tools that will help you stay on target with budgeting. And why do banks care? They care because you successfully getting through with your education, developing a career, earning income, and making good choices about spending and credit and saving and investing are going to make you a better client. Okay, let's look at this from the perspective of a bank for a minute. More people employed means more people want to buy things. Okay, if when the economy is good, like it is right now, when unemployment is low, then people are showing confidence in the economy and they start to spend. And they spend because the things that they choose to buy bring them utility, we call it in economics, but it means satisfaction or happiness. Okay, and that drives demand. And demand, encourages the increase in demand increases prices. That encourages suppliers to supply more, and consumption's important because it's about 70% of our GDP is consumption spending. So right now, when the markets are so good, banks are incentivized to lend money to college students, lend money to young professionals. But banks are also, as part of their business, is they're making a profit, if you will, on the spread between the relatively low interest that they pay their customers and the relatively high interest that they charge their borrowers. So they have a name for that, and that's, when deciding what kind of interest to charge, they call it an investment risk premium. So what kind of an investment are you for the bank? Do banks want to loan you money? Let's talk about some things that will influence that. And before we do, is debt bad? Okay, a lot of students, when I ask the question to my college classes, they'll say, yeah, I bet debt's bad. Debt's not bad. Debt's a tool. Okay, that's a tool that allows us to buy things that we can't afford right now. So the question is, how do we deal with debt? There's some very interesting graphics on this link that I've provided there. I don't think I'm going to go there because I'm afraid I can't get back. I can't get back to the presentation
Yes, you
efficiently.
can.
No, that's okay. But I would encourage you. I would encourage you to look at some of these slides. They're kind of interesting because they talk about right now, since the economy has improved, what's happening is people are borrowing more. And people are borrowing more for all the reasons I just talked about on the last slide. And so you can see more students borrowing for college, more consumers borrowing to buy things. And so you can see debt levels increasing. There's nothing inherently bad about that. Okay. What we have to do is be responsible about our debt and to be deliberate about what sorts of things we choose to borrow for. For example, an education that is going to bring you a higher return than the money you borrow is a good investment. Is paying for a pizza with a credit card a good investment? No, not so much. Okay, so we need to. A good rule of thumb is the value of what you are buying with credit going to outlast the time it takes you to pay for it? Okay, and so credit for homes, credit for education, pretty good investments. Okay. So a related question, is no debt realistic? No, it's not. You are at a time in your life where you're not making a high income. Okay, so isn't it a good choice? It may be a good choice for you to take out a school loan for your education, but be smart about it. I see students who take out loans and then they go on vacation with them. They buy consumer goods with those loans. They bundle everything into the loan, and then and they do it year after year, and they get saddled with too much debt by the time that they graduate. So no debt is probably not realistic for a lot of people. If it were, would people even ever buy homes? Do you save up 30 years to buy a home, or do you take out take out a mortgage for a home? Probably the latter. Would businesses be able to expand if they couldn't take loans? So no debt isn't realistic, but we have to be informed and be prudent about what kind of debt we take on and our ability to pay that debt back. So from the perspective um, of the banker who may choose to grant you a loan, I want you to think a little bit like being a business. You are your biggest shareholder. Okay, you are the biggest shareholder in your life, and this website that I would have gone to, you might want to explore a little bit too. It shows people in all different income brackets and how much debt they have, how much net worth, and how much debt, net worth, in assets minus liabilities, um, what you own minus what you owe. Okay, in very simple terms, would be your net worth. Okay, and it shows kind of a group of wealthy people who have saved more than they have borrowed, and then it shows people who are sort of even, and then it shows a whole lot of people with more debt than they have assets, and you sure don't want to be in that category. So um, explore that. Okay, so let's think about what I just started to talk about a minute ago, and that's, why would a bank loan you money? Okay, and what would they care about in terms of loaning you money? And I'll tell you, these are the same things that will help you be successful in college. They're the same things that will help you get a job. So let's look at these 4 C's: character, capacity, capital, collateral. Okay. In terms of character, one of the things that a bank will do, but increasingly what employers will do, is to look at your credit report. Okay, because what does that credit report say about you? It says, and again, being very simplistic, are you good for it? Okay, do you have you paid your past debts? Have you handled money well in the past? Okay, that's a good indicator that you'll handle money well in the future. Okay, um, they'll look at the second C is your capacity. Okay, are you earning enough money to pay back the loans that you take out? And this is an interesting one as you think about your life after college graduation. Is it reasonable for a bank to loan you money to go to college if the degree that you're going to major in doesn't have a high enough income associated with it to pay back the loan? Okay. That's an I hate to see you rush too early into a major if it's not something you love. I believe, especially in the first 2 years of college, you have some opportunity to explore different courses and different majors and see where your passion is. But but you have to be realistic too, especially if you're borrowing money for college. Is the academic path that you're on going to lead to a career where you can pay back your loans? You're interested in that. Your parents are interested in that. The banks are interested in that. The universities are interested in that. So um, be honest with yourself about your 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 choice of post college opportunities. Um, Capital. Okay, so this is the third C in capital. Right now, as a college student, you probably don't have um, much of a net worth. Okay, and that's because it's very likely that you owe more than you own. But that's going to flip. That's going to flip out on the other side of college graduation, where you're working and you're earning income. Okay, so banks look at that. Okay, and then last, collateral. Why do you think it's easier for college students to get a car perhaps than some other kind of credit? Because if you default on the car loan, there's collateral. There's a secondary source of repayment, that the banks would repossess if you don't pay. Um, and that's why car loans tend to be lower interest than a lot of other kinds of personal loans. Okay, so those four C's, let's go back to those for a minute. Okay, which one do you have the most control over right now? Your character. Okay, so it's a good time to be building that character. If you've made credit mistakes in the past, start to fix them. Okay, and the first, oh, there's an expression. Let me see if I can think of it. You got to face to erase. Okay, so know what your credit score is. If you haven't done that, you can do it with a website called annualcreditreport.com. There are also a number of apps that you could look at. One of the apps that a lot of students use is Credit Karma. That's very easy. Okay, but you should be very aware of what your credit score is. I made the joke earlier about, dating. If you're on the third date, it's time to talk about credit scores with your partner. But in all seriousness, you need to know your credit score, and if it's bad, face it. Face it. There's some things that you can begin to do about it. With all of the concern about identity theft, you need to know what's on it and make sure that there aren't problems. If there are problems, you can correct them. And so let me address a couple misconceptions that students often have about credit scores. Checking your own credit score, okay, on an app like Credit Karma, or doing what I said, going to the credit reporting agencies or to annualcreditreport.com. That's not going to hurt your credit score. Even applying for a loan is not going to hurt your credit score. It will affect it a little bit, but not a lot. There's a difference between what they call, a soft check and a hard check. Okay, and a soft check, it just is when when someone just looks at your credit score without you actually applying for a loan. But if you apply for loans, your credit score gets a hard check, and if you do if you do it once in a while, it's not going to hurt you very much. But if you imagine a Saturday where you're off car shopping and you stop at 5 different car dealers and every one pulls your credit report, and everyone is a hard credit inquiry, and you don't get a loan from any of them, that would be a hard hit on your credit score. So be smart, know what your credit score is before you go shopping for a car, let's say. Okay, so you have control over character. So work on that one. Let's go look at some other things now. Okay, I went to four different sites, and all I did was search financial tips for college students. Okay, and I want you to see, I went to Money Crashers, I went to HuffPost, I went to AOL, and I went to Forbes. And there's some real similarities between each of these. So I'd encourage you to, I've provided the actual links here, and I would encourage you to read each of these 4 articles. But look at some similarities. Create a budget, okay? And that begins, I told you, start with understanding your credit score, and then create a budget. Understand how much money you have and how you're spending it. Um, be honest about how much you have and where you're spending it. And then look at it going forward. Plan what you're going to expend, your fixed expenses, things like your rent and your cell phone bill and your tuition payments and your I will come back to this, but and your books, because you can't be successful without your learning materials in school. We can talk about ways to make them less expensive, but budget for those things that you know you have to pay every month or regularly, okay? And then, be realistic about your variable expenses, your entertainment, your food, your clothing, all your travel, all of the other things that you do. Okay, try to, as best you can, minimize your student debt. Look for student discounts. College campuses are always, offering discounts. I would just caution you, okay, a discount is still off of money you're spending. You cannot spend your way to wealth. Okay, so be aware of that. Boy, please take care with your credit cards. If you have them, use them very sparingly. If you don't have them, um, try to, you know, um, try to go without them. Okay, avoid full price textbooks. It's okay to ask a professor, do I need that newest edition of the textbook, or can I look for an older one? When you look for an older one, sometimes eBay, Amazon, there's lots of places where you can maybe, there are some other student-specific websites, but you can find less expensive options, but it is not an option to go without your course materials. Now I'm talking as a professor. Okay, know your financial aid options. Remember when I was talking about resources before, I said start with your financial aid office. Budget, budget, budget. We're hearing from Huffington Post here. Okay, the envelope system is a neat idea. And it just means, that you put the money that you're budgeting for the various things you do in envelopes with that name. And when the envelope's empty, it's empty. Okay. Learn to love frugality. This is actually kind of fun. Make it a game with your friends. Who can uh, eat dinner the least expensively? Who can go out on the cheapest date? You may not want to call it that, but who can buy an outfit for an interview at the lowest cost? I actually had a contest with my students one time before the semester started. I told them what books that I wanted to use, and I I gave them, maybe a month before class started to find those books, and I had a prize for the students who could bring me a receipt for the cheapest book. And I think I had a student that semester, there were 3 books that they needed, and one student got them all for like $7.19 and won the prize. So, there's a lot of things that you can do where there's fun. Okay, freshman 15, you've probably heard about this as a weight gain, but AOL has done, and you know what? That's because many freshmen aren't eating healthy food. Okay, so keep a good diet in mind as you go off to school. But this new freshman 15 from AOL is talking about 15 tips for being financially literate while you're in college, being careful with credit, stick to a budget. Do you see some of the same themes coming up? Pay less for textbooks, okay? Um, a lot of textbooks you can buy online directly from the publisher less expensively than you can through the campus bookstore. Um, interesting play on words here. You know, everyone's been talking to you about being successful in college, ensuring with an E your success, but this is insure with an I, and it's saying, you know, think if you've got a laptop and you've got a stereo system and you've got a TV in your dorm room, you may want to look at renter's insurance to insure those things. Again, compare the costs and benefits. Okay, remember we talked about managing relationships with all the people who might be able to help you after college. Well, here uh, AOL is talking about mastering relationships. Save early and often. That's that compound annual growth calculator that we looked at. Okay, looking at Forbes 10 best money tips. There's some really good ones, okay? And again, it's variation on a theme. All of the groups have said maintain your finances on your phone or on your electronic devices. So many of you, you know, this is where you communicate. This is maybe for many of you, this is the world that you live in terms of social media. Well, manage your money online. Okay, don't take out more student loans than you need. Learn to start saving a little bit a month, even when you're in college. Okay, before there's some interesting apps. Have you heard of an app called Acorn? That's one that rounds up every time you buy something. Let's say you buy something for $9.27. And you pay for it with your debit card, it will take that, you know, it'll round it up to $10 and it will put the change into an investment account for you. It's just, you know, a little bit at a time, but it's that's an interesting way to save a little bit. Okay, something that Forbes mentions that the other websites did not: take the maximum classes possible each semester. Okay, this is because there really is a benefit to you if you can get through in a 4-year graduation window. It means fewer student loans. It means less long-term debt, a faster path to your career job. And so take your courses. And now I'm just, you know, I'm gonna finish up with just some college class advice. Attend every class. Try not to miss any classes. Being there is such an important part of being successful in college. Texas has a limited drop rule. Be careful about dropping classes. Okay, because you have a lifetime maximum. Check with your university and your specific campus, but there is a lifetime maximum across Texas universities that you need to be aware of. And so starting classes and then dropping them, okay, not a good idea. And you know, read before class, be prepared for every class. But if it so happens that you are not prepared, don't skip class because of it. Be there, be engaged. All the effort you put in now is going to pay off for you in the future. I think I'll end with where, you know, the Forbes article ends, and that's: remember why you're in college. Okay, you're in college because you have chosen to invest in your future. So make the most of it. Make the most of your classes, make the most of your contacts, make the most of the opportunity so that your life is worth the investment that you've made. So, Chris, I think I'll stop there unless
Excellent.
there are questions.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much for sharing, Susan. I appreciate the work that you put into today's presentation. Like you said, you went and researched, which is what we're asking our students to do. And again, I know there's quite a few students that could not participate during this live session, so we are recording this so that you will have an opportunity to view the link at a time that's appropriate for you, and you can, you know, toggle back and forth and hit the areas that, you know, you wanted to highlight that will best meet your needs, students. Well, Susan, thank you. I know you're busy, and I really appreciate you taking time out of your class day, uh, since you are teaching, and you are really sharing some great wisdom with our future college students. And I hope they take advantage of these
Okay, well, I've
great
enjoyed it.
tips.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks so much. You have a great day.
Bye-bye now.